Here we are at problem 3b from our target 1. We're asked to evaluate the following expression where we know that we have some a, b's, and c's, and here again are those different values and what they are, that we're going to go ahead and have to substitute into this expression. So when we do that, again, that's usually our first step when we're trying to evaluate. We end up with 3/4 times the absolute value of 4 times our a, and a here is -7, minus 3 times our b variable, in which case that's -4. So -3 times -4, closing that absolute value. And then lastly, that plus c at the end, so plus 5. Now that we've substituted, let's go ahead and simplify things within our absolute value, because again, absolute values pretty much work just like they do with the parentheses, so that would be kind of like our first go-to. So this 3/4 is still on the outside, and inside of our absolute value we have 4 times -7, so there, again, there's a multiplication operation happening there between these two. And then likewise, there is a -3 being multiplied with this -4. So we have two multiplication operations happening in here, and those are the ones we're going to go ahead and do first. So we have 4, again, 4 times -7, that gives us -28. And then -3 times -4 gives us +12. Now, and then we would close our absolute value, and then lastly plus 5 at the end. So pretty much the only thing that we've done there is we've just multiplied our two numbers together here. In previous years, I've been asked, this -3, is it considered -3, or is it subtracting this 3 times -4? And in which case you would then just take this 3 times -4. It really doesn't matter, because if you take the negative along with it, or just the regular 3, you would end up with the same result. What I mean by that, if we had -3 times -4 in this case, we would end up with regular +12. All right. The other version is to consider it as negative and then 3 times -4. So that negative is not associated with the 3. We would end up with 3 times -4 gives us -12. But again, the subtraction symbol would just simply drop. And then really the opposite of -12 comes out to be regular 12. So you end up with the exact same thing. From my experience in working with my guys, they honestly think it's usually easier just to have that -3 times -4, giving that +12. There's less confusion with the signs and such, so that's usually why they attach that negative symbol or that subtraction symbol with the number right next to it. So moving forward though, we end up with 3/4 times the absolute value of -28 plus 12. Again, we have to work with inside of our absolute value, so -28 plus +12 gives us -16 plus 5. Then we would take the absolute value of -16, which would give us +16. We have 3/4 times, again, absolute value of -16 gives us +16, and then plus 5. After this, we could then go ahead, there's multiple ways that we can go ahead and simplify this out. Typically, from what I've seen in past experience, we would multiply this 3 times the 16, giving us 48 on top, over 4 plus 5. And then 48 divided by 4 gives us 12 plus 5, for a final simplified version coming out to be 17. So again, that would be our most simplified version for this one. Now, there is another way that you can look at this, just this part right here. In which case, we could break this down into saying, how many times does 4 go into 16? Because we do know that 4 does go into 16 evenly. And that would be 4 times. In which case, then we could multiply our 3 times our 4 and get 12 plus 5. We pretty much just bypass this step right here. So if you feel more comfortable multiplying the numerator with that number, by all means, and do this step right here. But if you can recognize that, hey, 4 goes into 16 4 times, that is a nice little shortcut that you can get away with. Again, though, that is problem 3B, coming out to be 17. 3B from our target 1.